Sabah al-Khair, good morning dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Robert Martin, Nasser Mashni and Yusuf Ahmed al-Rimawi.
Palestine Remembered is Australia's only English language radio program that is totally dedicated to Palestine. We'd like to welcome those listening on 855 and those that will join us on podcast at 3cr.org.au.
Thanks for joining us. Stay with us and enjoy the episode.
Bringing you the news and views and the untold side of the Palestinian struggle for freedom from a Palestinian perspective. Good morning, listeners. I'm very excited to inform you of our wonderful guest. We're joined by Palestinian-Canadian artist Dalia Elcharbini, who is a fantastic Palestinian artist. She's a realist. That's the only thing I really know about art. I know a few other key words, Dalia, so forgive me, but your art is just amazing. We're going to put a link to her website, which is daliaart.com. She's in Canada, and it's just amazing work. Good morning, Dalia. How are you?
I am doing great. How are you, Nasser? Pleasure to be here.
We're really, really excited. Dalia, your art, I bought a piece off Instagram. You donated a piece for charity. We're going to talk about your charity in a minute. But one of the things we like to do when we have a new guest in our audience, we hopefully will get you on many more times on the journey, but hopefully it'll be at a free Palestine when we can talk about your art in Jerusalem. But today we're talking in diaspora because we're both denied the right to live in our ancestral home. Dalia, tell us your Nakba journey. How did you get to Canada?
All right. I was born and raised in Kuwait. My dad is he migrated from, I guess his family fled from their homes in Akka to Lebanon. And from Lebanon, he moved to Kuwait, and he's a practicing doctor there. And my mom, her family fled from Jaoune, and it's a village in Qada Safad in Palestine, to Syria. And then she married my dad, and we moved to Kuwait. So I was born in Kuwait, and we had something called wathiqa. I'm not really sure what it's called in English. It's basically a piece of paper that helps you maneuver slightly, but to be honest, it was as valuable as a napkin because it was barely effective. Whenever we tried to cross borders, we had to basically bribe the officers with money and to get across, because it wasn't a valid card or a valid passport. So we always kind of needed to have some sort of a passport. And my dad tried to apply for a visa a couple of times, a work visa, and our papers were delayed for many years until finally we heard back, and we ended up moving to Canada in 2005, which was a blessing because it was just a little easier to live here, and obviously on the promise that you're going to have a passport eventually, and you can move around the world and be and have papers. And so we moved to Canada 2005, and that was the journey. And my dad is still working in Kuwait. He comes and visits occasionally, but me and my mom and the rest of my siblings reside in Canada.
Wow. So we should just give some context to our listeners. Safad is inside 48 Palestine and is one of the villages that was completely destroyed. I mean, there's very little evidence that Safad was ever there. And the Wathiqa is a travel document issued to Palestinian refugees, barely a status. Although it looks efficient and fantastic, the reality is it afforded very little to no rights, which is why, your father had to pay so many bribes. Dalia, so 2005, you left Kuwait. So you were there for Gulf War I.
Yes, I was actually born in the year of, I believe. And it was interesting. It was a very interesting time. And actually my dad was one of the, he practiced, he was a doctor on ground, during the war. The Gulf War. Yeah, that was an interesting time. For 1 year, I believe, if I'm trying to remember exactly what year it was, But it was 1.5 years. My dad moved us from Kuwait because of the war, from Kuwait to Lebanon. So we lived in Lebanon for 1.5 years. And then once things kind of eased down a little bit, we moved back to Kuwait. So a lot of moving in my life.
Because one of the realities is that post-Gulf War One, Abu Ammar Yasser Arafat, he hugged Saddam Hussein, and many Palestinians left Kuwait and went into the wide world. Some of them ended up in Australia, but many of them were livid at the hug because the hug cost them their life of privilege and maid and a driver. But your father stayed, so he didn't suffer the racism or.
Well, I guess we're lucky in our scenario in the sense that he was surrounded by Kuwaitis who are like he was friends with people of the country who they don't abide to the political views of the government. So he was kind of in his own little bubble. He was happy in his job. He was kind of content, and he did not. I'm not exactly sure why he didn't make the decision to like leave. I don't know how many options he had, or if he was just he wasn't financially ready to make that move abruptly for his family after being, secured in his job and in his position. But yes, we always stayed in Kuwait. We never fully moved anywhere else in the Middle East. Like I know a lot of Palestinians went to Jordan. We're one of the Palestinians who've never been to Jordan. Just went from Kuwait straight to Canada.
Ghada Kami, she says, Palestinians have got a choice to be doctors, dentists, engineers, or failures.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not one of those things, then you're a failure. But in fact, what you end up finding is, irrespective of your vocation, whether you're a doctor, an engineer, a poet, whatever it might be, in fact, your full-time job ends up being Palestinian, because you have to explain yourself, you have to find your space, you have to decolonize people's minds as to vanquishing you from a narrative. How did you end up? I mean, your art is exquisite. And listeners, again, we're speaking to Dalia from Canada, and her website's daliaart.com, but that link will be in the end of the podcast. So make sure you click on that and you can buy some wonderful stuff. So take us through your journey through to when did you discover that you were such a good drawer, painter, etc.?
I always was creative, and it was really any tool I had. I remember from a very young age, I would make up stories with my Barbies, and I would have my sister come and just watch me like direct this like whole story with my Barbies, and she was like eager to see what would happen tomorrow in the next episode. I had a very ultra creative mind, and I didn't know where to go with this creative force that I had. And growing in a traditional Middle Eastern household, it's not very welcomed for you to just be a creative for a living, or think of just making art as a career is not very, it's not preferred. And it was a bit of a challenge to even propose that. And to be honest, I never actually even got to that point. My art career is an absolute coincidence, and I stumbled upon where I am today because of I have this unstoppable drive and passion for art that life circumstances basically threw me into becoming an artist for a living. And it's just crazy. And it just means that when you're passionate about something, your drive is so loud that it mutes everyone else's opinion and them trying to tell you can't do it, or this is not a viable journey to take professionally. So yeah, I'm a big believer that you need to absolutely follow your calling all the way and ignore everyone else's critiques and their feedback. I mean, they can advise you when it comes to safety, and when it comes to just, if there are things that are absolutely harmful to your well-being, they can give you their 2 cents. But anything else that pertains to your purpose in life, that is a very intimate personal journey that you need to protect and hold close to your heart and realize it fully on your own. So what I did was, I always wanted to pursue a creative career, but I didn't know exactly how to get there. So one thing is I looked into film direction. I never went to school for art. I have Bachelor of Arts in Film and Theater. So I went to school to become a film director, and I just thought that would be my way to being creative. And it's a different it's a different world, it's a different medium, but I'm still being creative, and it's a little easier for my family kind of to swallow at first. When I was trying to apply for university, I just told them I want to film director. So and I truly, I unfortunately I have not tapped into that degree yet. I have not really done much with it, but I truly believe we can do so many things in life. So that I'm putting that on hold, and I'll go back to film directing and being creative in the film industry later in life. But right now my calling is visual arts. So I finished my degree, and then right after, it occurred to me that it's actually difficult to make a living right as soon as you graduate from a film and theater program. Like, you can't just jump into the movies in Hollywood and hire me as a director, especially as a female Palestinian Muslim director. It's a bit of a challenge, and it's a longer journey. So what I did was I wanted to find another way to make a living quick and in something that is also creative. So I did a certificate in web design and web development, which was a bit more technical than creative, to be honest. But I loved it. I did web design and development in the corporate world for many years. I even have my own branding company that I still do some work on the side, but very little. And yeah, that kind of made me, it kind of helped me stay afloat financially. But throughout this whole time, since I'm talking like throughout university, throughout my web design career, I always painted and I always exhibited. I always managed to make art in the background. It was the one thing that is fixed. Like, everything moves in my life. I move places, relationships, family functions, things happen around me, but the only thing that has always been fixed and engraved is just my art and my pace in creation. I always created, and the more stressed I was, the more I made art. So I got to a point where I realized that I'm being creative at my web design job, but as soon as I get home, I just felt like I was draining my creative energy in my web design job, and I'm not fully available for my art when it comes nighttime, right? So I was like, why don't I just quit my job and do this for a living, since I'm doing well in my art shows? And I don't know what it was, Nasser. It was like a really loud voice that was telling me, you can do it, even though it was the most insane decision to ever take. Even my mom was just absolutely, she was like, don't do it. She was like, because I was getting, alhamdulillah, I had a great job. I was getting paid well and I had a good position, had a senior position. And, but yeah, something in me was rejecting the whole 9 to 5 grind, and I knew I wanted to do something bigger with my art. My art was going to be the tool to get there, but I knew that it's going to be through my art. So I did. 2 years ago, I quit my job and I dedicated myself fully to my art career, and I started understanding the business side of art, because not every artist can make a business out of their art. It's definitely a challenge. Also, not every artist is well versed when it comes to monetizing their work. Some artists just create for the sake of creating, and they're absolutely clueless on how to sell or how to market. So I managed to find a couple of streams of income through my art that can help me survive. And yeah, ever since I quit my job, I will, there's no way I will go back to working for any company ever again. I since that day, alhamdulillah, my career just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and my goals are getting bigger and bigger. And to me, it's just a platform to do things for my homeland eventually. And it's literally just my kind of road there. That's the whole thing behind me trying to make something out of my art.
And it's gorgeous art. So we're talking to Dalia Elcharbini, who's a Palestinian Canadian artist from Canada. Dalia, one of the things, every Palestinian child has had to deal with pitching our parents about uni. So you're not alone, even though I'm a generation and a half older than you. I can assure you I had exactly the same pitch to my parents, and then when I quit a full-time job, it's like, oh no, how could you do that? I think one of the things we should explain to our audience, because we know culturally, Arab Palestinians, we have been creative, whether it's been through poetry and song and dance and tatreez, through embroidery. Philosophy. Art is nothing new to Palestine or Palestinians. The reality is, after the Zionist invasion and ethnic cleansing of Palestine, the destruction of our families, our homes, our connection to our dirt, what happened then was that our parents the pain of that war said, everything can get taken away from you but your education.
Yeah.
What's in your mind is yours, and that is your tool for security for your family. And so that same story has been told, and in different versions, to all of us. So our parents don't have, one of the unique things about Nakba children is that your father could never take you to where he grew up.
Mm-hmm.
Your mother could never take you. Her journey from Safed to Syria to Kuwait. Whereas today, I can take my children to the primary school I grew up and say, this is where I kicked that goal and won the grand final. I mean, usually it's a lie about my physical prowess, but anyway, I can actually take them on that journey. And so for us, in that first generation or second generation beyond Nakba, education was so important. But now, increasingly, we're seeing Palestinians like yourself, whether it's in visual arts or in spoken word poetry or whatever it is, we're seeing the world is seeing the rebirth of Palestinian art and resistance art. And so much of your work is emblematic of Palestine, whether it's, Jerusalem birth. And I really like Femme Falah, which I won't spoil for our listeners. So you're going to have to go to daliaart.com so that you can see some of this work, but it's really gorgeous. So congratulations again. Sorry about being such a fanboy.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the shout out.
So when you launched Amal, which means hope, I can't remember how many months ago or whatever, I went, I've got to find a way to buy this. And I don't know what happened, nothing happened. But next thing you know, on Pali Roots, there was a charity auction and I was able to acquire finally my Amal. Tell us her story.
Yes. So Amal was actually a piece inspired by the journey of the Pali Roots program, the Pali Roots meal program. They do an incredible job in raising money to fund this program. And I just wanted to kind of capture, I'm a realist, the way I describe my style is a realist surrealist. So I do surrealist work, but I always try to kind of give a hint of life to my pieces. So they're not like very abstract, they're not very fictional. I still want them to kind of feel like they're alive, not necessarily human, but like just kind of there's life in them, there's soul, there's a pulse somewhere. That's kind of what I aspire to do when I create. So that piece, I wanted to capture the journey from and the different parts of the journey to having that program realized, the Feed Gaza program, which actually generated, I don't want to mess up the numbers, but that poster was the face for the campaign that made $2,028,280, which is insane. And that is like thousands and thousands of meals to people in Gaza when they needed them the most. So it was an absolute success, the campaign, and I'm very, very honored to have my art be the face for this campaign. That was really the gist and the inspiration behind the piece, to capture the journey. And I wanted to, I really didn't want to capture like just the sad face. I wanted to just have like this beautiful, hopeful gaze in the face, more than sad and, desperate and we need your help, because, we have so much dignity. Palestinians, like, no matter what happens to us, we still hold our heads high and we are still full of pride. And that's kind of the inspiration behind the piece. And I also have this signature thing where in a lot of my, if you notice throughout my portfolio, a lot of my Palestinian pieces would have floating olives and olive leaves in the background. So I wanted to kind of throw that in there for that piece as well. So it's a bit of my signature. But yeah, that's Amal.
It's a beautiful, beautiful piece. Now, you've created your own foundation as well.
Yes.
So
Yes.
talk us through the foundation.
Okay. This is the most exciting project for me, to be honest with you. It's something that I've always wanted to do. I always knew that I wanted to do something with children and helping them find their voices, and I wasn't really sure how. I always used my art as my personal journal to voice my thoughts and pour my emotions, but I didn't know there was actually a scientific term, or there's like an actual, there's an area of study that encompasses what I went through and what I do in terms of using my art as a healing method and using it, and have used it throughout my life. And then I stumbled upon art therapy, and basically it's using psychology techniques and art therapy techniques to help change perspectives and actually fine-tune certain things in the mind. And it's very, very effective in children because it helps them basically restore their innocence just by being present and being listened to as children, and just having full freedom to express themselves. And it provides them the space and to feel heard, and to vent, to let out their negative emotions. So and most importantly, it helps them transform their perspective on trauma, which these kids, especially the kids in Gaza, are dealing with a lot of it. They have a very high rate of psychological distress, and they basically they've been robbed from their innocence. Like, essentially, this is the demographic that we're dealing with, and they're living in constant fear. I believe these kids open their eye the second they open their eyes. They've experienced, witnessed, and survived 4 wars, and right now they're just like I'm gonna straight up, they're just corrupt mentally, and they need help. They need so much help, and you can help the adults, but I truly believe the most attention needs to go to the children. And this is why I'm very passionate about this program, and why my focus is the children, because they are inevitably the future of Palestine. And so, yeah, I created this foundation. It's called Our Star School Foundation, and it's a Canadian nonprofit to help the children cope with war-induced trauma, grief, disabilities through art therapy workshops. Now, I do want this to be kind of a global foundation. It's not going to be just in Palestine, but of course, because I'm Palestinian, and this for me, everything starts in Palestine, so it definitely has to be established and launched in Gaza. And then that program will be duplicated in different parts of the world where children are dealing with the same traumas and psychological distress, but definitely starting in Gaza.
How do you deliver the program?
Great question. So this is what I've been kind of trying to pick apart at the moment, and trying to figure out. Now, essentially, we want to have workshops. We wanted, the initial plan was we wanted to have workshops within existing schools. So we'll take a little bit of space, like a couple of rooms for this workshop to start in. But then I found out it's actually illegal to have nonprofit foundation programs within government schools. So that has to be tweaked a bit. So right now we're looking into renting a space outside and contracting teachers. And at the moment, I'm also looking at sourcing the materials locally, because turns out, again, another thing from my innocent brain, I was like, okay, I'd love to custom build a kit for every single child in Canada and send it and ship it off. But it turns out it's not really as romantic and as seamless as it is in my head. It's a very challenging process. Apparently they're extremely strict at the border when it comes to shipping any materials, any school materials, or any types of materials into Gaza. Like I think they're okay with like papers and like books. But
Dalia, last week they stopped the shipment of chocolate last week. So
Yeah. Wow.
The Israeli
Okay.
authorities are a level of inhumanity and barbarity that happens in Gaza that the
Yeah.
world has not seen.
Yeah. That's that's insane, but that's a challenge. That's a big challenge for me, but I am optimistic and I'm excited to find ways around it. One thing I did, which actually just happened last week, after I connected with you last, I spoke to a Gaza-based artist. Her name is Malak Matar. She's a sweetheart. She's actually an incredible artist. If you guys haven't seen her work, check out her work. Her name is Amal Matar on Instagram, and she's perfect. It was important for me to connect with her because she basically embodies the child, the profile of the person that I'm building this program for. She grew up in Gaza. She was born in Gaza and she witnessed the four wars, and she understands the power of art as a form of therapy. Art has helped her navigate through a lot of the trauma, obviously, and the heavy emotions that she witnessed throughout her life and upbringing. And she gave me a very clear description of the mental state of these kids, and it was horrific to hear. To be honest, it's very bleak. It's we always look like we're strong and we're resilient, and that's kind of the like we want. That's what we want to show the world, and that's what we want to portray for just to kind of keep our spirits up. But she was giving me kind of a very real picture of the situation, and from what I understood is that it's the kids are living in the worst conditions and they're like in constant fear. So something like this is in desperate need to be put out and implemented. Like my foundation is desperately needed there. So she was very resourceful too. She told me about this, the one store. She told me it's in the Medina, in the city. She said that I can connect with this one store, and they are an arts and crafts store. They sometimes are discontinued. They don't have canvases because the shipments were stuck or they don't get access to them. But she said that they have most of the art materials that kids would need in a workshop like this. And she was telling me that I would need to connect with the owner of the store and figure out a way to buy in bulk and find out how to put together these kits. And I'm currently speaking with a couple of art therapists, one based in the Middle East and one is in Canada, from the Art Therapy Institute, and we're trying to put together the curriculum that is specifically made for children of war, and that's kind of where we're at right now in the progress of this is where I'm at in building the program. The other thing is just it's COVID. It's so I'm kind of, that's another concern. Like, how do we go about putting together this program in the most safe, in safest ways, and following all the safety protocols. And it's a bit blurry for me right now what the situation is down there, but from what I have heard, it's not. It's the health. The epidemic is not managed very well down there, and so that's another challenge. But I mean, if this is going to take me 1 year, 2 years, I will do whatever it takes for this to be established. So right now we're trying to perfect the pilot program, and inshallah, once that's perfected, we will roll it out on a bigger scale.
You're an inspiration, Dalia. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Dalia Elcharbini, from a Palestinian Canadian artist from Canada. Make sure you check out her website, daliaart.com. The link will be in the podcast. Dalia, we've got about a minute or so to go. Leave us with something uplifting.
I want to encourage every Palestinian in the world, whatever it is, whatever your tool is, even if anything you do, anything that you feel that God have gifted you, to share your gift with the world for the purpose of bringing awareness to our narrative, our true narrative, or just simply share the beauty of our culture, or help the children of our land, because again, like I said, they are our future. Yeah, make that your life mission. That's living in diaspora. That's the least we could do.
You're a superstar, Dalia. Make sure you visit her website. You can see just how exquisite her art is. Aside from prints, you've also got postcards and little stamp things. I got my stamps when I got my own. Really, really so very cool. Congratulations, Dalia. We're so proud of you and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nasser. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for listening today. Don't forget, there's never been a better time for a free Palestine.